You don't break people by yelling. You break them by vanishing and letting the silence do the talking. They thought silence would feel like peace, but they were wrong. So wrong. Silence, when it's coming from someone who once loved you loudly, isn't peace. It's punishment. It's not quiet. It's echoes. It's questions. It's the sound of everything they didn't say now screaming inside their head. You want to know what really hurts people? Time. Because silence alone hurts. But silence with time, oh my friends, that's where the real pain begins. So, before we go any deeper, do me a favor, press that like button, hit subscribe, and if this already feels like your story, type it in the comments right now. Silence is my power. Hey folks, imagine this. You're a fireplace in the dead of winter. For months, maybe years, you gave them warmth, comfort, light. You were the fire that kept them from freezing in their darkest nights. Even when they didn't appreciate you, you kept burning. And then one day, you go cold. Not out of spite, but because you realized they never learned how to keep the fire alive. Now they're sitting in the same room, same chair, shivering, wondering why it's so cold. That's silence. That's absence. And that's the pain they never expected. Let's break the biggest lie they've been feeding themselves, that when you go quiet, it means you've given up, that you're sitting there broken, stuck, waiting for their return. But here's the truth. When someone pulls away and you respond with silence and time, you're not breaking, you're building, you're healing, you're choosing peace over pain, clarity over confusion, and most of all, you're choosing yourself. And that, my friends, is a move they never saw coming. They thought they had time. They thought you'd always be there. They thought they could wander off, do what they wanted, and you'd be waiting like a fool at the door. But guess what? The door's locked, the lights are off, and you've moved on, quietly, calmly, completely. And now every day without you feels like a punishment they sentenced themselves to. Here's the wild part. When you're gone, your silence becomes a mirror. And that mirror? It doesn't reflect your weakness. It reflects their guilt. It shows them the version of themselves they tried to hide from. The selfish one, the careless one, the one who took you for granted. And with every tick of the clock, that reflection grows louder in their mind. That's what silence and time do. They don't scream, they haunt. People don't expect pain from silence because they think pain is loud. But real pain, real regret, it's quiet. It builds slow, like water behind a dam. And one day, snap, the flood hits, and it's too late to run. You didn't walk away to hurt them. You walked away to save yourself, and somehow, that's what hurts them the most. Because nothing is more terrifying to someone who thought they had control over you than realizing they don't even have your attention anymore. So if you're in that place right now, if you've gone quiet, if you've stepped back, if you've chosen to let silence and time do the work, know this. You're not weak. You're wise. You're not running. You're rising. And every second you stay quiet, the pain they never expected keeps growing. So type it in the comments right now. Silence is my power. Say it loud. Say it for you. Say it for the strength they didn't think you had. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe, because what's coming next, my friends, that's when silence starts to torture. Stay with me. Number 1. They thought silence was forgiveness. You didn't go quiet to forgive them. You went quiet because they no longer deserved access to your voice. And yet, they convinced themselves that your silence meant peace, that you were over it, that you were fine, that you had nothing left to say. But what they didn't understand is this. Silence isn't always a sign of healing. Sometimes it's the beginning of the storm. the kind that creeps in slowly, quietly, until it shakes the ground beneath their feet. Imagine this, my friends. Someone walks out of your life like it's no big deal, like leaving didn't cost them anything, like you were disposable. They expect a reaction, an explosion, a dramatic monologue. But instead, you go silent. You don't call. You don't text. You don't explain. You disappear like a ghost in broad daylight. And at first, they celebrate it. They breathe a little easier, smile a little louder, because they think silence means forgiveness. They think your calm is closure. They think they've won. But slowly, something shifts. That silence they thought was mercy, it starts to feel like punishment. That peace they thought was weakness, it starts to feel like pressure. And that absence they thought they'd enjoy, it becomes unbearable. You see, when someone knows they've wronged you and you don't say a word about it, it haunts them. They don't know where they stand. They don't know how you feel. They can't predict your next move. That's when their mind becomes their worst enemy. Because silence doesn't just keep them out, it traps them in their own head, with their guilt, their shame, their lies. And now, they start asking themselves questions. Are they really gone? Do they still care? Why aren't they reacting? That fear starts creeping in. The fear that maybe, just maybe, they weren't as important as they thought. That maybe you didn't just walk away. You outgrew the need to respond. That's when the silence becomes torture. Because they can't fix what they don't understand. They can't fight what they can't see. And they can't manipulate someone who no longer responds. Let's break the illusion right now. You didn't go silent to give them peace. You went silent to find your own. You didn't stop talking because you had nothing to say. You stopped because you finally understood they weren't listening. That your words had become background noise. That your presence had been taken for granted. So you did the one thing they never expected. You left without a sound. And yes, it's hard. Silence isn't easy. Not when your heart is loud. Not when your mind is racing. Not when your soul wants to scream, "Look what you've done." But you hold it in. Because silence isn't giving up. It's growing up. It's realizing you don't owe anyone a performance. It's choosing not to bleed for people who wouldn't even hand you a bandage. And guess what? That kind of discipline, that kind of power, it's rare, it's sacred, it's dangerous, because it shows the world that you're no longer emotionally available for chaos, that you've closed the door and turned off the lights, not because you're bitter, but because you're better. You no longer react, you reflect, you rebuild, you rise. So if you're there right now, sitting in silence, wondering if they think you're weak, let me be the one to tell you, they're not relaxed, they're rattled. They're not celebrating your silence, they're suffering in it. Because the loudest scream is the one you never have to make. And the deepest cut, it's not from the words you said, it's from the ones you never did. Type it in the comments right now. My silence isn't forgiveness. Say it loud. Say it for your growth. Say it for the nights you wanted to reach out but didn't. Show them. Show yourself. Show the world that your stillness isn't surrender, it's strategy. Stay with me, because what's coming next? That's when time begins to do the real damage. Number 2, time doesn't heal them, it haunts them. Time doesn't erase guilt, it sharpens it, especially when the one you hurt never comes back to clean up your mess. They thought time would help them forget you, that eventually the noise of life would drown out your silence, that with enough distractions, enough fake smiles, enough new faces, you'd become a memory that doesn't hurt anymore. But what they didn't understand is that time doesn't heal everyone equally. Time can heal the innocent. But for the guilty, time is a curse. Imagine this, my friends. Someone walking into a room, closing the door behind them, and realizing too late they're locked in, alone, with nothing but the ticking of a clock and the echo of your absence. At first it's fine. They scroll through their phone. They laugh with people who don't know what they lost. They convince themselves they're okay. But time doesn't stay gentle. It waits, and then it strikes. Because here's the truth. They expected pain from you. A text, a rant, a desperate voicemail. That would have been easier. That would have made you the problem. But your silence, that's a different kind of agony. It doesn't give them anything to push against. It doesn't give them a target to blame. It just sits there, like a shadow they can't shake. And time? Time just amplifies that silence. Every week that passes without a word from you, their illusion starts to crack, slowly, quietly, and then all at once. At first, they told themselves you'd come back, that this was just a phase, that any day now, you'd fold. But when you didn't, when the days turned into weeks and the silence turned into distance, that's when time became their enemy. Let's break another lie they tell themselves. They say, if they cared, they would have said something. But the truth is, you cared enough to walk away with dignity. You cared enough not to beg. You cared enough to let them feel what life is like without you. And now they're realizing what they really lost. Because time exposes what emotion tried to hide. Time strips away pride. Time unmasks ego. Time brings back all the little moments they tried to forget. The way you looked at them, the way you checked in when no one else did, the way your energy made them feel calm even when everything else was falling apart. Time doesn't delete those things. It replays them. And the more it replays, the more it hurts. They thought they'd be over it by now. They thought someone new would have replaced you by now. But what they didn't calculate was how rare your presence really was. See, anyone can hold their hand, but not everyone can hold their soul. And now that you're gone, they're starting to realize you didn't just fill space. You were the space. And here's the haunting part. They can't reverse it. They can't go back. They can't rewind the clock. All they can do now is sit in the silence they created and let time do what you never needed to do. Torture them with regret. Because regret doesn't always hit like a train. Sometimes it's slow, it's subtle. It starts as a whisper. Maybe I messed up. Then it grows. Why didn't I appreciate them more? And then one day, they wake up and realize you're not coming back. Not because you hate them, but because you've outgrown the need to prove your worth. That's the part they never expected. They thought time would make you miss them more, but time made you stronger, more clear, more focused, more peaceful. While they were out there trying to distract themselves, you were building yourself. You were becoming untouchable. And now the clock is still ticking, but this time it's ticking for them. So if you're wondering if they feel it, if time is affecting them the way it affected you, the answer is yes, but not the way they hoped. It's not healing them. It's haunting them. It's revealing truths they tried to outrun. It's forcing them to remember someone who gave them everything until they gave them nothing. Type it in the comments right now. Time haunts the guilty. Say it for every day you stayed silent. Say it for every moment you chose growth over reaction. Show them. Show yourself. Show the world that you don't need to hurt them. Time will. Stay with me, because the deeper this silence gets, the more their reflection starts to scare them. Number 3, you became the mirror they fear. The scariest thing about silence is what it forces people to see when there's no one left to distract them from themselves. They thought losing you meant they lost a person, but what they really lost was their shield, their cover, their escape from the truth. You see, when you were there, they never had to face the reflection, the guilt, the flaws, the damage they caused, because your presence was soft, forgiving, calming. It was a distraction from their own darkness. But now that you're gone, it's just them and the mirror. And my friends, that mirror doesn't lie. Imagine it like this, standing in a room full of noise. You can't hear your own heartbeat. You can't hear your own thoughts. You don't even have to feel, because the noise fills the space. But the second that noise disappears, suddenly it's quiet. Too quiet. And in that quiet, all the things they ran from start to echo. All the words they said. All the things they left unsaid. All the choices they made when they thought you'd never leave. That's what silence does. It removes the background music and forces them to sit in the rawness of their own actions. They never expected to feel exposed. But that's what happens when the one who always understood you walks away. You become naked to yourself. Your ego can't protect you from the truth anymore. Your pride doesn't make good company when the lights are off, and that mask they wore so confidently in front of others, it's starting to slip. They thought you'd beg for closure, that you'd need answers. But you didn't. You didn't ask for one more conversation, one more explanation, one more round of pretending they didn't know what they were doing when they hurt you. You left the stage, calmly, quietly. And now the spotlight is on them, alone. And they hate it, because silence is not just stillness, it's confrontation. It's like standing in front of a mirror you avoided for years, only now the lights are brighter, the reflection is sharper, and what they see looking back isn't pretty. Let's kill the lie right now. They're not fine. Not because you're gone, but because now they see who they really are when you're not around to soften the edges. You didn't just walk away. You left behind a mirror, and every time they look at their life, their choices, their relationships, they see your absence staring back at them, not judging, not attacking, just existing. And that quiet presence, it's more painful than any argument ever could have been. They start asking themselves, was I too harsh? Did I push them away? Why didn't I value them when I had the chance? These aren't questions you gave them. These are questions their soul has been begging them to face. And now that you're silent, there's no more running. But don't mistake this for progress. Not yet. Most people don't change in the silence. At first, they panic. They reach for distractions. They post more, laugh louder, pretend harder. But the mirror doesn't go away. And the longer they look, the deeper it cuts. They didn't think you had it in you, to leave without looking back. But what they never understood is this. Your silence isn't cold. It's clarity. It's knowing that if someone can't look into your eyes and see your worth, then they were never really seeing you at all. You stopped handing out forgiveness like candy. You stopped softening their guilt with your kindness. And now, they're left with the only person responsible for their mess, themselves. So if you've gone quiet, if you've stepped away, and if they're acting like they don't care, don't fall for it. Pride is loud. Guilt is quiet. And silence? Silence is where the truth starts to scream. You've become the mirror they were never ready to face. And every day without you just adds more cracks to the reflection. Type it in the comments right now. I am the mirror. Say it for your strength. Say it for your healing. Say it for the version of you that refused to carry their guilt any longer. Show them. Show yourself. Show the world that silence doesn't just protect you. It reveals them. Stay with me, because next we're going to talk about what really happens when you give them no reaction at all. Number 4. No reaction was the loudest reaction. Sometimes the loudest scream is silence, and the sharpest response is none at all. They didn't know what to do with your silence. See, most people are prepared for drama, for an argument, for a confrontation they can twist to look like you were the problem. That's what they expect. That's what they're ready for. Because when you react, they stay in control. They get to steer the narrative. But when you give them nothing, no reply, no expression, no closure, that's when the panic sets in. It's like this, my friends. Imagine trying to open a door that used to be unlocked every time you walked up to it. No knocking needed, no key required. You'd walk right in, comfortable, confident. But one day you grab the handle and it doesn't budge. You jiggle it, knock, wait, still nothing. That silence on the other side of the door, it's deafening because it tells you everything you didn't want to hear. You're not welcome anymore. You're not expected. You're not entitled to answers. And now they're spiraling. Why didn't you respond? Why didn't you fight back? Why aren't you reacting the way they planned? That's the beauty of your silence. It doesn't give them anything to manipulate. No emotional outburst to point fingers at. No tears to make them feel superior. No text to dissect. Just stillness. Just space. Just the realization that they pushed too far. And this time, you didn't come back. Let's break another lie, shall we? The lie that silence is weakness. That if you don't respond, you've lost. That walking away without a word makes you the one who couldn't handle the heat. But here's the truth. Silence isn't surrender. It's strategy. It's knowing that some people don't deserve an explanation. Some situations don't deserve closure. Some exits are stronger without slamming the door. Because here's what they didn't calculate. Your silence became pressure, a quiet weight pressing down on their chest every single day. At first, they pretend they don't care. They go about their life, posting, partying, performing, but deep down, they're waiting for the message, waiting for the explosion, waiting for the chase. And the longer they wait, the more they realize it's not coming. And that realization, it stings. They're not haunted by your voice. They're haunted by its absence. Because when you were there, you gave them comfort, even in chaos. You were the one who checked in, who explained, who tried to make it work. And now that you're gone, they feel the void, not because they miss the attention, but because they miss the power they had when you used to respond. And now, they have nothing to push against, nothing to feed off, nothing to win over. You see, no reaction strips them of their control. It tells them, you no longer have access to my energy. It says, I'm done explaining my worth. And that silence, that stillness, it's what breaks them far more than shouting ever could. Because they don't know what you're thinking. They don't know if you've moved on. They don't know if you've stopped caring, or if you finally started caring for yourself instead. And that, my friends, is when the regret begins. That's when they replay everything. Every word, every mistake, every moment they thought you'd never walk away. And now they sit in the ruins of their own actions, waiting for a response that will never come. And you've already left that chapter behind. So if you're sitting in silence, wondering if it matters, it does. It matters more than you know. Your lack of reaction is your loudest boundary, your greatest protection, your ultimate power move. You didn't raise your voice, you just raised your standards. Type it in the comments right now. My silence is my boundary. Say it for the version of you that used to over-explain. Say it for the part of you that finally let go of needing to be understood. Show them Show yourself. Show the world that silence is not weakness. It's wisdom. Stay with me, because what comes next is when they realize the one who remembered them most has already forgotten. Number 5. The pain of being forgotten by the one who always remembered. They took you for granted until they realized you were the only one who never did that to them. It hits different when you're the one they can't forget, but they are the one you stopped thinking about. That's a pain they weren't ready for, because they thought they had more time. They thought no matter how far they pushed, you'd stay, that your heart was on standby, waiting for them to wake up. But my friends, one day, you just didn't. You didn't check their story. You didn't hope for their message. You didn't wonder if they missed you. You just let go, quietly, slowly, completely. Imagine this, folks. You've got a plant. You water it every day. You give it light, attention. You speak to it kindly, even when it doesn't grow. And one day, the plant looks you in the face and says, "I don't need this." So you stop watering it. You walk away. Now the plant sits in the sun, drying out, hoping you'll come back. But you're not coming back, because you were never just watering it. You were keeping it alive. And now, without you, it's starting to wither. That's them. That's the one who once rolled their eyes at your love, now missing the very thing they treated like a burden. They didn't realize how good they had it when they had you. You remembered the little things, the way they liked their coffee, the songs that made them feel understood. You noticed the cracks they tried to hide. You loved them on their worst days, even when they didn't ask for it, especially when they didn't ask for it. You remembered them when they felt unworthy of being remembered. And what did they do? They forgot you the second the world distracted them. They looked away the moment you needed to be seen the most. And now? Now the tables have turned. You don't remember their birthday. You don't remember the sound of their voice when they're excited. You don't wonder who they're with. You don't wait for closure. You've moved on with grace. And my friend, that kind of forgetting, it hurts more than revenge ever could. Because when someone's used to being remembered, and suddenly they're not, that absence becomes pain. Not the loud kind, not the public kind, but the kind that creeps in late at night, when the phone doesn't buzz, when the memories hit harder than the present. That's when it stings. Because they know you used to remember everything, and now you're the one they wish they could forget, but can't. Let's break the lie they told themselves. You'll always love them. Nah, love like yours doesn't beg to stay. It walks away once it's no longer respected. You didn't lose love. They lost loyalty. They lost the rare soul who saw them fully and stayed anyway. They lost the one person who remembered their silence as much as their words. And now they're realizing they were the forgettable one, not you. But let's be honest, it wasn't easy. You used to lose sleep over them, wondering why they changed, if you mattered, if they ever cared. You replayed conversations. You gave them grace, again and again. You remembered every detail because that's who you are. You don't love halfway. You don't show up with conditions. You gave fully. And when you finally walked away, it wasn't out of anger. It was out of exhaustion. You stopped remembering not because you didn't care, but because you had nothing left to carry. And now they feel it. They scroll through your name. Nothing. No new posts, no mentions. They want a sign that you're still stuck, but you're not. And that realization, it tears them apart, because they never thought you'd forget them first. But you did. Not out of spite, out of strength. So if you're standing in your peace now, if you've stopped remembering someone who never remembered your worth, take a deep breath. You didn't lose, you healed. You didn't forget because you're cold. You forgot because you chose to remember yourself instead. Type it in the comments. I forgot to remember them. Say it for the love that was real. Say it for the version of you that gave without keeping score. Show them. Show yourself. Show the world that forgetting isn't always the absence of care, it's the presence of clarity. Stay with me, because what comes next is when regret grows wild in the garden they abandoned. Number 6. Regret grows best in silence. You don't have to teach them a lesson. Just leave. Silence is the soil where their regret starts to bloom. They thought walking away from you would feel like freedom, like a weight lifted, like fresh air. They thought your silence would make their life quieter, simpler, more peaceful. But here's the twist, my friends. Silence doesn't always bring peace. Sometimes it grows weeds, and the longer you stay silent, the more those weeds of regret start to take over the garden they abandoned. At first, it's nothing. Just a whisper in the back of their mind, a flicker of memory when their phone lights up and it's not you, a flash of your name in a random playlist, a scent that reminds them of your presence. They shake it off, laugh louder, post something for attention, distract themselves with someone new. But regret, it's patient. It doesn't hit all at once. It builds. It waits until they're alone. Until it's quiet, until their ego isn't watching. Imagine a garden that used to bloom every day because someone showed up to water it, to pull the weeds, to care. That someone was you. And the moment you stopped showing up. At first, nothing looked different. The flowers stayed bright, the grass stayed green. But with each passing day, the petals began to curl, the roots started to dry, the soil cracked. And one day, they look around and realize everything they once had is gone. That's what your absence does. It doesn't break things loudly. It lets them wither in silence. They thought you were replaceable, that someone else would bring the same comfort, the same care. But what they didn't realize is that regret doesn't grow when you're replaced. It grows when you realize you can't be. And the silence, it doesn't let them forget that. Every second you stay quiet is a reminder of what they lost. And every day they don't hear from you, the garden dies a little more. Let's destroy the myth right now. Regret is instant. False. Regret is slow. Regret is quiet. Regret is invisible until it's everywhere. And when it finally hits, there's no going back. They try to fix it. Maybe send a message, like a post. Accidentally bump into you. But you don't respond. You don't bite. And that's when they realize this isn't a game. You're not pretending. You're gone. And here's the part that burns the most. You didn't walk away to teach them a lesson. You didn't ghost them to manipulate. You didn't disappear to cause pain. You disappeared because you were tired of being in a space that never saw your worth. And now that you're silent, they have no one to blame but themselves. That's what makes regret powerful. Not the memory of what they did, but the weight of what they could have had and threw away. They'll remember the kindness you gave so freely, the way your energy made chaos feel calm. They'll remember your patience, your effort, the parts of you they thought would always be there. And now, it'll hit them at the most random times, while they're with someone new, while they're laughing, while they're scrolling through meaningless moments. Your name, your smile, your presence, it all comes flooding back. And they can't drown it, because you're no longer in the water. You're walking on land, dry, free, untouched. And the silence keeps getting louder, because you didn't respond, you didn't explain, you didn't give them that one last chance to clear their conscience. And now they sit with the guilt, with the story they can't rewrite, with the garden they abandoned, now barren, And the worst part, you're not mad anymore. You're not hurt. You're just not there. That absence is louder than any apology they could have ever offered. So if you've gone quiet, stayed strong, and walked away without burning the bridge, congratulations. You've done something most people can't. You've let silence grow their regret organically. No force, no rage, just truth. And truth always blooms in the end. Type it in the comments. Regret grows in silence. Say it for every seed of effort you once planted. Say it for every moment you were taken for granted. Show them, show yourself. Show the world that you don't need revenge. You just need distance. Stay with me. Because what's coming next is when time turns distance into desire. Number 7. Time turns distance into mystery. They stopped valuing you when you were near. Now they're obsessed with the version of you they can't even reach. They thought space would give them clarity, that pulling back would make you come closer, that if they disappeared, you'd chase, that if they gave you silence, you'd crack. But what they didn't expect was that you'd stay gone, that you'd become quiet, calm, unreachable. And now the same distance they created has become the very thing fueling their confusion and their obsession. Let me paint this for you, my friends. You used to be the open book. Always there, always responding, always caring, even when they didn't deserve it. You were a daily presence, like the sun, predictable, warm, safe. But one day, the sun stopped rising for them. One day, you stopped explaining yourself, stopped calling, stopped making them feel like they were the center of your universe. And now, you've become the question they can't answer, the mystery they can't solve. You see, people don't crave what's always available. They crave what they can't have, what slipped away, what feels rare, what suddenly became a ghost. You became a puzzle they can't complete. And the longer you stay quiet, the deeper that mystery grows. They start asking themselves things they never asked before. Who are you with? Have you moved on? Are you even thinking about them? Do you still care? But here's the catch. You're not giving them any clues, no breadcrumbs, no hints. And that silence, it's eating them alive. Because now they have to fill in the blanks. And people never fill in blanks calmly. They fill them with fear, with assumptions, with wild fantasies. And that's where time becomes your most powerful ally. Because the longer the silence lasts, the more the story in their head starts to shift. At first it was, they'll come back. Then it became, why haven't they? And now, it's, what if I can't reach them at all anymore? That fear, that's where obsession begins. Let's break the lie right now, that your absence makes you forgettable. That's what insecure people tell themselves when they leave someone irreplaceable. But real ones? They know, they feel it, they live with it. Because the mind doesn't forget peace. It doesn't forget authenticity. It doesn't forget energy that made them feel grounded, safe, understood. And the more time passes without that feeling, the more desperate they become to find it again. They scroll through old messages, replay memories, hear your laugh in a stranger's voice, see your eyes in someone else's stare. They seek out people who might feel like you, but no one does, because you were never a vibe, you were a whole frequency, and now they're tuned to static, because the one person who matched their chaos with calm is gone. And you? You're not lost. You're just quiet. You're living, evolving, transforming in silence. And while they're watching your stories from a fake account, you're writing a new one, with purpose, with presence, with peace. And that glow, that silence, that distance, it's making them sick with curiosity. Because now you are not the person they left. You are becoming someone new, someone untouchable. And that mystery, that damn mystery, that's what haunts them, because people can't forget the ones who vanished with grace, who left without a scene, who chose self-respect over drama. That kind of departure, it sticks, it lingers, it becomes a loop in their mind they can't shut off. And the worst part for them? They'll never know the real ending, because the story moved on without them, and they're no longer the main character. So if you've been silent, distant, building your peace, don't stop now. You're not being cold, you're becoming rare, and rare things aren't explained. They're remembered, they're wondered about, they're missed forever. Type it in the comments, my silence became mystery. Say it for every unanswered text you didn't send. Say it for every time you chose discipline over drama. Show them. Show yourself. Show the world that you don't need to be loud to leave a mark. Stay with me, because what comes next is the final blow, when they realize you're no longer reacting because you've already won. Number 8. This is the Stoic way. You don't retaliate, you rise. True strength is not in how loudly you shout, but in how quietly you stand your ground when everything around you is chaos. They thought you would crumble. They thought silence would break you, that the moment they walked away, you'd fall apart, that the pain would be so much that you'd beg them to come back. But here's the truth. They miscalculated. You didn't break, you didn't bend, you didn't scream, you rose. Imagine this, folks. A tree in the middle of a storm. The wind howls, the rain pounds, the branches whip back and forth. But the tree doesn't scream. It doesn't shout into the wind. It just stands, with roots deep in the earth, holding steady, even when everything else around it seems to be falling apart. That's you, in the storm, unshaken, unmoved. Not because you're pretending to be unaffected, but because you've learned that true power is not in how loud you are, but in how still you can stay when everything around you is out of control. They thought you would react, that you'd send that one last text, that you'd beg for answers, that you'd throw yourself into the chaos to bring them back. But you didn't. You chose peace instead of noise. You chose self-respect instead of desperation. And now the silence you gave them, it's louder than anything they could have ever said to you. Let's break the lie right now. People think silence is passive. They think it's weakness. They think it's giving up. But here's the truth. Silence is strength. Silence is discipline. Silence is the hardest thing you can do when you're in pain. And that's why it's so powerful, because the real strength is in knowing that you don't need to prove anything. You don't need to chase after what doesn't value you. And you don't need to react to things that no longer serve you. You just stand tall. You stay true to yourself. You rise above the chaos. And that's when the real transformation happens. Not when you beg for closure. Not when you throw yourself into a fight. But when you finally decide that your peace is worth more than their games. When you rise, you let go of all the things that used to control you. The need to explain yourself. The need to be understood. The need for validation. You realize you don't need them to see your worth, because you see it. And that, my friends, is when they start to panic. Because in their mind, they thought they could walk away. They thought they'd leave you behind, and you'd just fade into the background. But now, they're realizing they've made a huge mistake. Because the person they thought was weak, the one they thought would chase after them, is the one who's standing strong, unmoved, untouched. And that is what breaks them. Not the fights, not the words, not the drama. It's the fact that you no longer need their approval. And that That's the most terrifying thing to someone who's used to having control over you. You didn't retaliate because you knew they were not your enemy. The real enemy was the part of you that didn't respect yourself enough to walk away. The real enemy was the part of you that would have stayed just to prove something. But now you've mastered the art of stillness. And that stillness, that's what's hurting them the most. Because they can't figure out what you're thinking. They can't figure out how you've moved on so effortlessly. They can't figure out why, after everything they did, you're still standing tall. That's when the guilt sets in. That's when they realize they lost, not because you didn't care, but because you finally realized your own worth. So, if you've stayed strong through this storm, if you've walked away with grace, if you've risen without fighting, then know this. You didn't lose. You won. You've already won. Because the greatest victory is not in making them regret what they did. It's in knowing you no longer need them to see your value. You know your worth. And that's what makes you untouchable. If this spoke to you, like this video, subscribe for more, and share this with someone who needs to hear it.